You know that feeling when you're standing in the cereal aisle at Kohl's or Woolies, and you grab the same box you've been buying for years? Maybe it's got colorful packaging. Maybe it promises vitamins and minerals. Maybe your kids absolutely love it. But here's what I discovered after spending weeks reading labels, comparing ingredients, and talking to Australian nutritionists. 9 of the most popular cereal brands sitting on those shelves right now aren't quite what they seem. And when I say that, I don't mean they're dangerous or illegal. I mean something far more unsettling. They're designed to look healthy while delivering something completely different. What I found changed how I shop, and by the end of this, you might never look at your breakfast the same way again. Let me start by saying I'm not a scientist or a health guru. I'm just an Australian consumer like you, someone who got curious enough to actually read the fine print. And what sparked this whole investigation was a conversation with my mate's wife, who's a dietitian in Melbourne. We were having coffee, and she mentioned something that stuck with me. She said the biggest challenge she faces isn't convincing people to eat better. It's convincing them that what they think is healthy actually isn't. That sentence haunted me for days, because I realized I was one of those people. I'd been buying the same cereals for my family, confident I was making good choices, never once questioning what was really inside those boxes. So I started looking. Really looking. Not just at the front of the package with its bold health claims and cheerful imagery, but at the back. The ingredients list. The nutritional panel. The fine print that most of us never read because, honestly, who has the time? And what I discovered was a pattern. A very specific pattern that showed up again and again across different brands, different price points, different marketing angles. These 9 cereals all share something in common, and it's not what the packaging wants you to believe. Now, before I name names, I need to explain something crucial about how we got here. Because this isn't about vilifying food companies or creating panic. It's about understanding a shift that happened gradually, so gradually that most of us didn't even notice. Back in the 1970s and 80s, when breakfast cereal really exploded in Australia, the formula was relatively simple. Grains, sugar, some added vitamins. Everyone knew what they were getting. But somewhere along the way, as health consciousness grew and Australians started demanding better options, something interesting happened. Instead of fundamentally changing the products, many brands simply changed how they talked about them. They added health halos, those little symbols and phrases that make you feel virtuous about your choice. Whole grain, high fiber, essential vitamins, reduced sugar. And we believed it. Why wouldn't we? The first brand that stopped me in my tracks was one I'd been buying for 3 years straight. It's got whole grain right there in the name, sitting proudly on shelves across every major supermarket in the country. The box shows fields of wheat, golden and wholesome. The nutrition claims on the front talk about fiber and energy. It looks like the responsible choice for your family's morning meal. But when I actually calculated the sugar content per serving, not per 100 grams, which is what the label shows, but per actual bowl that a normal person would eat, I got 23 grams. That's nearly 6 teaspoons of sugar. In one bowl. To put that in perspective, that's more sugar than you'd find in a standard glazed donut from most bakeries. And this is the cereal marketed as a healthy, wholesome start to your day. What makes this particularly interesting is how the serving sizes work. See, companies are allowed to choose their own serving sizes for nutritional labeling. So this particular brand lists 30 grams as a serving. 30 grams. I actually weighed out 30 grams of this cereal one morning, and you know what it looked like? About 3/4 of a cup. When was the last time you or anyone in your family ate 3/4 of a cup of cereal and felt satisfied? Most Australians pour at least double that, especially kids and teens. Which means that sugar content we're talking about? Double it. You're looking at 12 teaspoons of sugar. Before you even add milk. Before you even start your day. And that's just the first one. The second brand on this list is even more fascinating because it positions itself as the premium option. You've seen it, higher price point, sophisticated packaging, marketed heavily toward health-conscious adults who care about quality ingredients. It talks about ancient grains and superfoods. It's the cereal you buy when you're trying to make better choices, when you're willing to spend a bit more for something genuinely nutritious. Except when you read the actual ingredients, the third item listed is cane sugar, and the sixth is honey, and further down, there's brown rice syrup. These are all just different names for sugar. They're not some magical healthy alternative. They're sugar. They spike your blood glucose the same way, and together they make up a significant portion of what you're eating. This premium, health-focused cereal contains 19 grams of sugar per actual serving. That's about 4.5 teaspoons. And because it's marketed as healthier, people eat it without guilt, sometimes even having seconds. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The third brand is one that specifically targets parents with young children. Bright colors, cartoon characters, fun shapes. Everyone knows this one is basically candy, pretending to be breakfast, right? Wrong. Or rather, that's not what makes it problematic. What makes it problematic is that there's now a healthier version of this exact same brand. Same characters, similar packaging, but with claims about reduced sugar and added vitamins. And parents, wanting to do right by their kids without the morning battle, buy this version thinking they've found the perfect compromise. But when I compared the two versions side by side, the healthier one only had 3 grams less sugar per 100 grams. 3 grams. That's less than 1 teaspoon difference. The rest of the formula? Nearly identical. Same refined grains, same artificial colors, same preservatives. But that little reduced sugar label does powerful psychological work. It makes you feel like you're being a responsible parent. Meanwhile, your child is still starting their day with what amounts to a moderate glycemic spike that'll crash before morning tea. The fourth and fifth brands are interesting because they're both marketed under the wellness umbrella. One focuses on protein, the other on fiber. And in fairness, they do deliver on those specific nutrients. The protein one has 14 grams per serving, which is genuinely impressive for a cereal. The fiber one has 11 grams, also substantial. But here's what they don't emphasize. Both contain highly processed ingredients that your body doesn't recognize as food in the traditional sense. Isolated soy protein, chicory root fiber, maltodextrin. These are manufactured compounds designed to hit specific nutritional markers so the package can make specific claims. But nutrition science is increasingly showing us that the form of nutrients matters just as much as their presence. Fiber from chicory root extract doesn't necessarily provide the same benefits as fiber from whole oats or wheat bran. And isolated proteins can come with additives and processing methods that strip away the beneficial compounds you'd get from eating actual protein-rich whole foods. What struck me most about these two is how they represent a broader trend in the Australian food industry. This idea of fortification as a substitute for quality. Instead of creating cereals from genuinely nutritious whole ingredients, manufacturers take refined grains and then add back individual nutrients in concentrated forms. It's technically meeting nutritional guidelines, but it's missing the point entirely. Your body evolved to extract nutrition from complex whole foods, where vitamins, minerals, fiber, and proteins all work together synergistically. Eating fortified refined grains is like demolishing a house and then claiming you've improved it by installing a fancy new doorbell. The structure is still fundamentally compromised. Brand number 6 is one that surprised me the most, and I'll tell you why. It's the cereal I grew up eating. The one my grandparents had in their cupboard. The one that's been around for decades. The one that feels like a safe, traditional choice precisely because it's so familiar. And maybe that's why I never questioned it. Why would I? It's been feeding Australian families for generations. But when I actually looked at what's changed about this brand over the years, I discovered something troubling. The recipe has been modified 17 times since the 1980s. 17 times. Each modification supposedly to improve taste, or meet consumer preferences, or enhance nutritional value. But when you compare the current ingredients list to vintage boxes from 30 years ago, what you find is a gradual increase in sugar content. a shift from natural colorings to artificial ones, and the addition of multiple preservatives that didn't exist in the original formula. The cereal I'm eating now isn't the cereal my grandparents ate. It just has the same name and nostalgic packaging. Brands 7 and 8 are both gluten-free options, which is worth addressing because this is where things get particularly murky for Australian consumers. With the rise in gluten intolerance and celiac disease awareness, gluten-free products have exploded in popularity. And I want to be clear, for people who genuinely need to avoid gluten, these products can be life-changing. But here's what the cereal industry figured out. Slapping gluten-free on packaging creates a health halo that attracts not just people who need it, but people who think it automatically means healthier. It doesn't. These two gluten-free cereals both use rice flour and cornstarch as their base, highly refined carbohydrates with minimal nutritional value. To make them palatable, both contain more sugar than their gluten-containing equivalents. One has 26 grams per serving, the other 24. They're both more expensive too, sometimes double the price of regular cereals. So you're paying more for something that's nutritionally inferior unless you specifically need to avoid gluten. The marketing has convinced us that gluten-free equals healthy, when in reality it's just different processing. The 9th brand is perhaps the most insidious because it targets a specific demographic with surgical precision: busy Australian parents who want convenience without guilt. This cereal comes in individual serving pouches, marketed as grab-and-go breakfast solutions for hectic mornings. The pouches have motivational phrases on them. They're portion-controlled, so you don't have to think. They're shelf-stable, so they're perfect for lunchboxes. And they cost roughly 4 times per serving what regular cereal costs. But here's the thing. When I analyzed the nutritional content and ingredients, this is essentially the same formula as brand number 3, just repackaged and repriced. Same sugar content, same refined grains, same minimal nutritional value. The only difference is the convenience factor and the price tag. And because parents are genuinely stretched thin, genuinely trying to do their best with limited time and energy, this brand is absolutely thriving. It's not solving the nutrition problem, it's profiting from parental exhaustion. Now, here's where I need to address something you might be thinking. Maybe you're wondering if I'm being too harsh. After all, people have been eating these cereals for years, and they're fine, right? Australia has one of the highest life expectancies in the world. We're not dropping dead from cereal consumption, and you're absolutely right. This isn't about immediate danger. What this is about is cumulative impact and lost opportunity. When you start your day with a blood sugar spike from refined carbohydrates and added sugars, your body responds with an insulin surge. That surge leads to a crash a few hours later, which is why so many people feel hungry or foggy-headed by mid-morning. This cycle repeated daily for years contributes to insulin resistance, weight gain, energy fluctuations, and increased risk of metabolic conditions. It's not dramatic. It's not immediate. It's subtle and slow and easy to ignore until suddenly it isn't. And beyond the physiological impact, there's the opportunity cost. Every morning you eat one of these cereals is a morning you could have eaten something that genuinely nourishes you. Oats with fruit and nuts, eggs with vegetables, yogurt with seeds and berries. Real food that your body recognizes, that provides sustained energy, that doesn't require a nutrition label to justify its existence. The cereal industry has done such effective marketing that we've forgotten breakfast existed before boxed cereals. We've convinced ourselves that we don't have time for anything else, that this is the realistic option for modern Australian life. But making porridge takes 6 minutes. Scrambling eggs takes 4. The time difference is minimal. The nutritional difference is profound. So what do you do with this information? I'm not here to tell you to never eat cereal again or to feel guilty about what's currently in your pantry. What I am suggesting is that you actually look at what you're buying. Read the ingredients list. Check the sugar content per realistic serving, not per the tiny serving size the manufacturer suggests. Ask yourself if the health claims on the front of the box match what's actually inside. And maybe, just maybe, Start questioning whether the convenience and familiarity of these products is worth what you're trading for them. The Australian food industry isn't going to change until Australian consumers demand it. And we won't demand it until we understand what we're actually eating. These 9 brands aren't unique in their formulations or their marketing strategies. They're representative of a broader pattern where ultra-processed foods are dressed up in health claims and positioned as everyday staples. They're designed to be consumed without thought, purchased out of habit, accepted without question. But you're not powerless here. Every time you shop, you vote with your wallet. Every time you read a label, you become a more informed consumer. Every time you choose real food over processed convenience, you're making a statement about what you will and won't accept for yourself and your family. The breakfast cereal aisle will still be there tomorrow, bright and colorful and full of promises. But now you know what to look for. Now you know the questions to ask. Now you understand that healthy isn't always what it claims to be, and that sometimes the most Australian thing you can do is read the fine print and make up your own mind. Because at the end of the day, your health is your responsibility, and that starts with knowing exactly what you're putting in your body first thing every morning. If this got you thinking differently about what's in your pantry, about what you're feeding yourself or your family, then it was worth making. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply pay attention.